What's up, good people? Welcome back to the garage. Today we have a little bit of something different here. We're going to be working on a newer bike, working on my XSR900. I'm going to put on an Akrapovic. I always mess up how to say it. Put on a full system from Akrapovic, the carbon race line. And we're also going to install the flash tune system from FTECU to get the fueling and the mapping right and everything like that with the aftermarket system. So it should be a lot of fun. Before we get started, we're actually going to do a little bit of a sound test. I'm going to run you around the block or whatever so you can hear what the bike sounds like before, and then we'll do a sound test for the after. I think I'm going to run it with no dB killer in just to start and see if that's obnoxiously loud, and if so, I'll stick the dB killer back in there. But this should be something a little different. I'm looking forward to it. This bike here has given me a lot of fun, a lot of good times, but it still sounds like a sewing machine. So hopefully this will sort of wake up the sound a little bit, and also maybe squeeze out a little bit more performance, smooth out the throttle, and things like that. So we're going to jump into it and have some fun. Let's get to it. All right, so I went out and I did a little bit of a sound test. I had the microphone under the seat so you could try to get a little bit of ambient sound. There was something rattling around in there too, so you probably heard that, but that was probably some wire or whatever, I don't know. There was something in there making a noise other than the exhaust. So now we're gonna jump into getting the stock exhaust removed, and then we'll start putting on the new exhaust. So let's dig into it. after a little bit of wrestling, you can see it's done now. You can see here where it's still dull. This is where I had to make an epoxy repair to the pipe. It had a little road rash, but it had a lot of road rash on it. I had to fill in a space actually. And the sticker that goes here was already scratched up, so I ordered another sticker. It should be here soon. But I have to polish that up so it's shiny like the rest of it, and then it'll be good. So it's on there. Let's get it down off the lift and see how it sounds. One more thing. We have to clean these pipes off because the oils from your hand will get on these pipes, and as they heat up, it'll burn into the pipes. You'll be able to notice it. So just give it a quick wipe down. Getting a little ahead of myself. I also need to tighten up the header bolts. So we'll do that too real quick. All right, so here we are back in the garage the next day. We've got the exhaust all installed. I think it sounds pretty good. We'll see how it sounds if it's too obnoxious when I'm out riding it actually. And if so, then we'll put the DB killer back in there. But for now, I like how it sounds. So the next step here is to install this FTECU flash tuner kit, just so we can get the bike running properly with this increased air that we introduced by putting the aftermarket exhaust on there. So usually they come lean from the factory, so adding additional air into the system just makes it even leaner. And so flashing a new map on there, getting the fueling and the throttle response all smoothed out is part of how you do it correctly if you want to go all the way. So we're going to do that now, and I'll walk you, or I'll bring you through the process with me. Hopefully it'll make a big difference in the character of the bike. So let's just jump into it. All right, so to get started, we have to pop off the seat first of all. There are a couple of different pop rivets that we have to get, or not rivets, but they're like push lock plastic thingies, whatever they're called in real life. There's like 4 of those that we have to take off the bike. And so we'll get those off first. You really just take I've got a pick here, push those in, pops in the center, and you pull them out. And I just kind of stick them in the little tray under the seat just so they don't get lost. We'll pop all 4 of these out to get started. And then we have these 6 decorative bolts that are holding it in as well. And so we'll pop all of those off. Put those under the seat as well. Don't forget the washers that they have with them. So now that we have all those off, this center part just kind of pops out. So we'll take that out and set it to the side. These clamshells, as I call them, they're just kind of sitting in place, and the bolts are what was holding those in. So you can just literally lift those off. And so the next thing we do is there's a Allen bolt on both sides. Take those off so we can actually lift up the tank. All right, so I've got the bike on the stand now, and what we're gonna do is just lift the tank up, and you can see the ECU here. I'm gonna shove this box under there just to help hold the tank up, so I have two hands to work with. But you can see these two little clips here, and those two little clips are what hold the ECU in on top of the air box. So what we're gonna do is release the ECU from these clips, get these wires, these bundles of wires out of the harness there, and just kind of pull everything out as a unit. And then we'll disconnect the clips from the ECU itself. We could probably actually leave the ECU in there. We don't need to take it out because we're just going to be modifying the harness itself. But this is all it is. This is the whole brains of the bike. I think I'm gonna just actually leave that in there now that we have it disconnected. That's for safekeeping. So with this system, you can either get the bench tuning kit, which means it has a little power supply. You plug it in. You take the entire ECU off the bike. You plug the ECU into that kit, or you can get this bike side harness, and that's the option I went with. And with the bike side harness, there's a few wires here that you actually plug into the wiring harness here for your ECU. And in both of these plugs here, there's a couple of spaces that you have to put it in. And then that way, anytime you want to put a new map or edit anything in that Flash Tune software, all you have to do is take your seat off, take this dust cover off, and plug into this on the bike. You don't necessarily have to take all to the tank and do all this disassembly, take the whole ECU out, flash it on the bench and put it back in, rinse and repeat. This is just a little bit easier after you get this installed, and then that way, anything down the line is easier to get to. All right, so here on our harness, you can see these little gray weather seals in there. We're gonna have to pop 3 of those out, and that's where our 3 new wires go in. All right, there's one. There's 2. And there's 3. The other thing we need to do is unlock the ring that sort of keeps all these wires in place. So I don't know if you can see inside of there, but there's these 2 white tabs. And so we have to push those down, and it'll unlock this internal ring that sort of locks onto all of those wires to keep them from coming back out of the harness. So let's push both of those down. All right, try to be careful not to pull anything out. And then the way that this thing is set up, we've got red, orange, and yellow. They go in that order. So we're just gonna grab this, make sure the locking tab is facing down, push it in. All the way until you feel a click. That's red. There it is. It's orange. And yellow. All right, everything's in there. So now we want to push the lock ring back up to make sure that it holds everything back in place. Snap, crackle, pop, baby. All right, and you can see again, those 2 white tabs are sticking up to let us know that our lock ring is in place. So that side's done, that's it. So this isn't terribly difficult. The other side, we actually have to pull one out and do a little bit of like a piggyback. So we're gonna pull one out, connect it to this part, to this gold terminal. We'll heat shrink them together, and then we'll put this one, this silver terminal, into the harness on the other side. That one unlocked. Okay, it unlocks that way. And it's this top, the way we're looking at it here is this top left wire. You can see this is a mess of wires, but it's this top left wire that we need to pull out. Just like that. All right, so now you can see that that's a female end wire. This gold terminal is a male end wire. Got a little piece of heat shrink on there already. So we will marry these two together. Male and female end. And pull this heat shrink up over the two. It's a little disconcerting that there's no positive sort of snap that happens when you do that, but the heat shrink supposedly will hold it together. So we'll just make sure they're pushed together. Get our heat gun and fire it up. All right, so there's that. And then, so this side now piggybacks off of that. This is a female side again. And this female side will go back into the harness where I took out the original one. So just go right back into where the other one came out. All the way again till you get a click. All right. Make sure the rest of these wires are still nice and snug and lock it back down. And that's it for this part. So we can actually connect this back up to the ECU, and the rest of everything else happens in the software. So we'll get you in there. Get you in there. Let's get this harness back in. There we go. That's it. Probably want to zip tie these out of the way just so they stay nice and neat. So let's go ahead and do that. Keep everything buttoned up. Chop off the excess and we're good. All right, so for a little extra security, I'm gonna just put a little bit of gaff tape on here and hold this up against the tank. Gaff tape is great because it holds really well, but it doesn't leave residue like something like a duct tape would. All right, so now we start reassembly. So on these little clips, you can see they are depressed, it's pushed in. And so that's how you had to do it to get it out. But in order to put them back in, you wanna push this down so that it pops out. And then when you push it back into the body piece, then you push that plug to lock it in place. All right, so here we are in the software, and we're gonna start making some adjustments here. So if we go into our ECU settings, there's a few things. You can see fan temps has already been lowered. So we're gonna stick with those values there. That means the fan will come on at a lower temperature, allow the engine to run a little cooler. Disable top speed limiters on, disable AIS, we're gonna disable that. If we get too many pops and crackles on deceleration, we'll turn that back on and reflash. A mode by default, I'm gonna leave it on false. I usually ride in standard mode, not trying to race. And then decel fuel cut, I'm gonna leave that on. This is what causes fairly heavy engine braking, and I actually like that, especially when I'm riding in the twisties. A lot of times I'll use engine braking in conjunction with my actual brakes, and so I like to keep the engine braking where it is. I'm gonna say device, write ECU. Now we have to turn the key on. Key is on. Say okay. Then it's going to ask if I want to register my ECU to that license. I'll say yes. And now it should write key off. Okay. It wants to turn the key back on. Okay. And now this could take up to 6 minutes. All right, so you can see it's successful, and now we'll disconnect it. All right, peeps, that's it for this one. Just did a quick test ride and it seems to run really well. The throttle is way smoother than it was originally. I do get some backfiring when I get hard on the throttle and either downshift or just let off the throttle and let an engine brake. I get like one hard backfire. So I might reflash it and turn off the AIS. The nice thing is all I have to do is connect this harness, this little piggyback, whatever you want to call it thing, to the harness that's connected to the bike now, plug it into the computer, and I'm off and running again. I don't have to go through any of the taking the tank covers apart or any of that. So that's what's nice about the bike side harness. So I'll probably continue to mess with it a little bit here and there until I get it into a point where it feels like it's comfortable, and that's where I want to leave it. It's loud. I don't have the dB killer in right now, and coming from the stock exhaust and going to this exhaust with no dB killer in, it is loud. I don't know if I'll get used to that or if it'll just be too loud, and I'll stick the dB killer in there, maybe modify it, drill some holes in it to kind of get a nice in-between sound between having no dB killer and having the dB killer in there. So, but we'll see. I'm gonna ride it as is for a little while, see if I get used to it, or see if it's if it seems too obnoxious, or if it's more trouble than it's worth. So in any case, make sure you click the thumbs up button to like this video. If you haven't already, go ahead and click the subscribe and click the notification bell, and that way whenever I post another video, you will get notified again. The next video, I think maybe either getting back on the GS550, I still have to finish that rear cowl, or I have to do some maintenance to my wife's bike and put some fork seals in it. So maybe when I start that project, I'll record it as well, just in case people haven't done that before. You can see how fork seals are done. Anyhow, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.